Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated legacy action. When I was looking to record today, I wanted to try and showcase Caustic Bronco in a deck, which is one of the new cards from Outlaws of Thunder Junction that I thought was really good and I wanted to try and play, and I haven't played it on the channel. And then I came across this deck list, which also runs Breakout, which is another recent card from the previous set, the Karlov Mana set, that I messed around with a fair bit and I quite enjoyed, but didn't really feel like it was there as a deck. Well, this deck combines of both and I just had to play it. So what is Breakout? So this lets you look at the top 6 cards of your library and put a creature with mana value 2 or less into play with haste from those 6 cards, or you can put it into your hand if you don't want to do that. So it's either a hasted creature or you can get something into hand. We tried messing around with it before by putting in like Furies as a thing that wants to go into our hand as well, but this build is just going lots and lots of stuff that gets put in off of Breakout. So we've got powerful cards like Orcish Bowmasters, which can shut down some decks quite nicely. We've got Deeproot Wayfinder, which allows us to recur Wastelands and lock people out of the game. We've got a Dauthi Voidwalker for graveyard hate. But what I noticed when I played the Dauthi Voidwalker before was that it was a little bit tricky with the mana on the Dauthi Voidwalker sometimes, with black, with some of the things we're trying to accomplish. So this build has gone for using the Caustic Bronco to fill that card advantage slot that the deck really felt like it was lacking. So this basically will do a Dark Confident trigger every time it attacks. So that's where we reveal the top card of our library, put it into our hand, lose life equal to its mana value. However, we can saddle this and our opponent loses a life instead of us. And saddle is where you tap creatures with total 3 power or more. We're probably not doing that in this deck, but it might come up. But generally, this is just going to be card advantage, so we can just keep throwing threats at our opponent. And speaking of threats, we've got a big boy. Territorial Kavu. So this is a domain creature. So it has power and toughness equal to the number of basic land types. So this can be a 2-mana 5/5. This is basically our Tarmogoyf, if you will. And when it attacks, you can either exile a card from a graveyard, so this is Graveyard Hate 2, or you can discard a card and draw a card. Speaking of Graveyard Hate, we've also got a couple of Scavenging Ooze, which is quite nice in this deck because we don't have big-end, like high-end creatures, you know, like your sort of 3 to 5 drop creatures. But Scavenging Ooze, when we start putting mana into it, ends up growing to a rate that is relatively comparable to larger creatures, so this allows us to have a big scaling creature. So I quite like some of the configuration here. We've got some Hierarchs to help fix our mana a little bit, and it's a reasonable thing to find off of Breakout and allow us to double spell. We have a bunch of fast mana so that we can cast a 2-drop on turn 1, which is kind of a key thing of our deck, and hopefully we can recoup this lost cards to fast mana via the Caustic Bronco. We've got a little bit of removal, Murderous Cut, Lightning Bolt, Sheoldred's Edict. So when I played this before, we had things like Morlock and stuff like that. So this is going in a slightly different direction, but the spirit is there, and I am really interested in Caustic Bronco. I think I might have mentioned this last time I played Breakout as, I can't remember if this was spoiled. I either said I wanted a Dark Confident-like effect that doesn't die to Bowmasters, and this had either been spoiled or was just something I was hoping for along these sorts of lines. So pretty exciting to have the thing I wanted. Mana base wise, we've got fetch lands so that we can find varying lands. So we got Bayou and Badlands, which are our main colours, but then we can dip into Plateau and Savannah to try and pump up our Territorial Kavu. We're not going all the way with some sort of like blue land. So these are only going to be 4/4s in this deck. But 2-mana 4/4s with extra text is pretty reasonable. Sideboard wise, we've got a Blood Moon to hate on people with some non-basics. We have 1 Forest ourselves as a basic. We've got Shape of Sanctuary, so if we're against a deck that's just trying to remove our creatures, we can just draw cards every time we do that, and eventually we should overload our opponents. We've got some stuff for Storm in the form of Canonist and Collector Ouphe, which can obviously all be found off of the Breakout. Same with the Outland Liberator. Doorkeeper Thrull, this can jam up Thassa's Oracle Winds, and obviously can be found with the Breakout. Then we have 4 Containment Priests, which is an interesting one. This is like Graveyard Hate that we can find off of Breakout. However, it does more than that because it also stops things like Green Sun Zenith and Natural Order. But there is a cost, because this makes future Breakouts not do anything. Well, the cards go into our hand instead. So it's still, like, not terrible. It's like it basically turns this into Once Upon a Time rather than being Breakout, which is not ideal. But if we're in a matchup where we really need Containment Priest, we'd much rather have this in play and weaken our Breakouts than otherwise. So yeah, that's the deck. I'm quite excited for this one. I did enjoy playing some Jund Breakout before, and I messed around with it, and this person has recorded a 5-0 league with it on the old Magic Online, so let's see if we can put up similar numbers with this deck, and, you know, maybe it'll be pretty sweet. I just don't know yet. Alright, remember to like and subscribe, and let's just jam right in with some Breakout action. Right, we're on the play. We have a turn 1 Territorial Kavu. Is that exciting? We've got a lot of stuff to loot away. If they kill our Kavu or counter it, we got nothing. I think we can do better than this. Okay, now this is more my sort of jam. I think... What are we going to get rid of here? Might just be the Wasteland. Or we just lean into Caustic Bronco. That way we have Graveyard Hate, Card Advantage, and Orcish Bowmasters. I think that makes sense. Let's play out this Lotus Petal. Let's crack this. Let's get ourselves... It's probably just another Bayou here because we have black spells we definitely want to be able to cast. We could get a Taiga, I suppose, and that opens up breakout options. And it still makes green for this, and we have the black in our hand. And we use black off of the Lotus Petal. Okay, I like that. I think in a vacuum, we want to get our card advantage engine up and running first. And that's what our Snake Horse Mount does. What phenomenal artwork on this. Absolutely nailed it this time around. Love it. Alright, we're in with the Caustic Bronco. He's just going to get lightning bolted? Perhaps. But I don't believe we're in danger of being wastelanded this turn. Right, that's not a wasteland. We're going to see some sort of like mana dork that we can ping down with Bowmasters. We are. Off of a tropical island though. So daisies and things are potentially a danger. Right, I think we're going to attack with the Caustic Bronco. Let's have a look. I'm hoping it's not Murderous Cut. Which feels like an odd one for us to be playing. So we can try and play something like a Scavenging Ooze and test the days that way. We can play a Ignoble Hierarch and just, you know, play around the days every turn. Or we could play the Orcish Bowmasters and hope they don't have the days. Those are our three options. I think given that we're already drawing cards with our Bronco, I like the high-end shot of going for the Bowmasters here. If they Force of Will it, then fair enough. If they daze it, it sets them back a turn anyway, so it's kind of done its job a little bit. So this is going to delay our opponent for another turn. Ignoble Nexus. Alright, so we are on Infect. Brainstorm from our opponent. So I'm not actually expecting a lot of removal out of our opponent. So the Caustic Bronco should just keep drawing us cards, and our Life Total is not going to be under pressure either, because they're going to be trying to infect us. So we can draw all the cards and not have to worry about it. The power of Snake Horse Mount. So we can play out this Hierarch to get one more damage in first. I think that makes sense here. And then we can see what we draw and work out what we're playing in our second main phase. A Wooded Foothills. A free card for free. I think I want the Territorial Kavu in to play this turn. It's just the bigger thing that I can do. So this is red or green. So we probably want a white source. And we want a white-red source or a white-green. So we want a green source because of the Scavenging Ooze. So this means we're getting the Savannah here. Just sort of living our best zoo life over here. There's a 4/4 with extra bits of text. Now, it is entirely possible that our opponent kills us next turn with this Ignoble Nexus. It's not easy for them to kill us next turn, but it's possible. However, they're going to have a lot of damage coming their way if they don't kill us. Another Hierarch. Okay, so they can crash for 3 with this Nexus. If they've got a couple of Invigorates, I'll do some work here for sure. I'm just taking the 3. No? They got some more action? Alright. So we could play a Scavenging Ooze, but it doesn't have... And we could eat our Bowmasters, and that will give us the Caustic Bronco hitting our opponent, but that takes all of our mana away, basically. We could play the Territorial Kavu. That is cheaper and allows us to do this. I think that is better. So white is not a removal colour here. So we're going to go green off of this, which means we have to go red off of this, and then we can fetch whatever we need off this Verdant Catacombs. So let's saddle, tap in this one. Put this one on the bottom, and we'll do the loot mode. So we get another card first before we loot. 2 damage to our opponent. Okay. And then we can discard a card here. So I think we're going to discard the Scavenging Ooze. And then I think we want to just play this Bowmasters out right now. This guarantees this damage comes through. We get to take out one of these Hierarchs. There's no point trying to take out the Ignoble Nexus because they'll have a pump spell in response. But if we take out that, that's effectively -1ing the Nexus. Okay. Getting some pounding on there. Our opponent is dead on our next turn. We have a lot of power in play. We just need to not get womboed. They've got 7 poison to make. That's certainly doable with the resources they have right now. A Brainstorm. That gets to start pinging them with Orcish Bowmasters. But this is a... We're either going to win this turn or not play. But we put 1 on the Hierarch. And the rest can go to their face. Because this will stop the Hierarch from pumping the Nexus. The fact they haven't scooped makes me think we're dead. So, Invigorate Berserk does it here. 2 Invigorates does it. What's it to be? Invigorate? Okay, that's 5 poison. Is it the Berserk? It is the Berserk. And it is lethal. Alright. Not quite there for us, unfortunately. So Blood Moon is pretty good in this matchup. Canonist has some pretty interesting text too that I'm into. And Outland Liberator can do some work by blowing up an Ink Mod Nexus at times. Dauthi Voidwalker isn't really necessary in this matchup. And the Scavenging Ooze feels too slow here as well, so they can go out. That leaves us looking for 2 more cuts. Obviously, we want to keep in our removal. We want to keep in our Wasteland lock with the Deeproot Wayfinder for sure. More removal over here. We need to keep our fast mana so that we can start out big. Are we keeping Hierarchs? Is that what we can trim here? Hierarch on turn 1 does allow us to make a Blood Moon on turn 2, which is pretty useful. But I think we're just going to trim the Hierarch. We've got a lot of fast mana anyway. We could play something like a Doorkeeper Thrull just to block for a turn, but that doesn't feel like a recipe for success to me. Right, we will jam like this. A Murderous Cut, an Orcish Bowmasters. We don't have any Surveil lands. Like, I think this is the lower end of fine, which I think is worth keeping hold of. To play as Verdant Catacombs. Our opponent might have Wastelands, so playing a non-Wastelandable land is a good idea. Has to get a green source. The Wooded Foothills. A lot of the Infect lists you see these days don't play any basics. A Glistener Elf. A Deeproot Wayfinder. So do we want to... If we try and ping this off and our opponent's got something, then we're going to feel bad. I think we're cracking this. We want a green source. Do you want a red source or do you want a black source? It's probably a black source here. So that means it's Bayou. Then we can play out... We don't want to show them the Wasteland just yet. So I think we play out the Badlands. And we drop a creature this turn. And then next turn we can cast the Bowmasters and then Wasteland our opponent. And then attack with a Deeproot Wayfinder and get ourselves the Wasteland. But if they spend any interaction on this Deeproot Wayfinder, then our Bowmasters are even more likely to resolve. But if we can Wasteland lock our opponent, that's very much the way that I like to play Magic the Gathering. No days on this. Opponent attacks, we have to make a decision if we're blocking or not. Pendelhaven. So they can pump to 2. I don't think we're blocking here. Right, they're not using the Pendelhaven. Which means they're either committing something else or they're worried about Orcish Bowmasters. Speaking of, let's hit this Pendelhaven. Let's try and force some action with this Bowmasters. If they daze, then they're back a land. Right, so we still take out that, and now we get to attack and put our Wasteland into play. Unless our opponent has a Dismember, which they did not. Alright, we connected, so let's get our Surveil on. Ethersworn Canonist. How do I feel about this? It's a thing we can do. I think we'll put it on top of our library for now. And we'll get this Wasteland back. So we can keep our opponent off of days next turn because we can just Wasteland them. And try and go again with the old Bowmasters. Alright, so our opponent's showing us a different land here. This makes me feel like they're trying to build up their graveyard for something like Become Immense. Now they've just got Invigorate plus... what's it called? Berserk. That was the thing I was trying to think of. We'll play this out. We will Wasteland our opponent. We'll go to attacks. Right, this feels good. This feels like good old-fashioned mid-range stuff. A Blood Moon. We did board this in, but I don't think we need this when we've got the Wasteland lock already. Okay, so let's go for a Bowmaster here. Force of Will or Bust their opponent. Alright, our opponent doesn't have anything that you would describe as a permanent, which is lovely for us. And if I'm correct, they don't have any basics in their deck. They didn't fetch a basic off that last fetch land either. Wooded Foothills. Alright, and we're just going to attack here. Let's get our Surveil on. Another Wasteland. We'll put this into the graveyard. And then, yes, we'll use this ability. We'll get this other Wasteland. Just for later. Play this out. I would like to have a Canonist. And then I'll play the Liberator as well. Do I want to hold up Murderous Cut or do I want to hold up Wasteland? I think I'm going to hold up the Murderous Cut. 2, 4, 6, 8. Just good old-fashioned making guys, turning them sideways. It's the power of grizzly bears. Have they got a surveil land? They could have fetched it in the end step then. Tropical Island. We have shown them the Blood Moon. But we can take out both of their lands next turn. And then Murderous Cut whatever creature they put into play. If they play something like... Oh, they do have a basic. They could have fetched that earlier. That's very odd. A Blighted Agent. Alright, we can kill that. And Orcish Bowmasters. Well, Wasteland their Trop. Play another Bowmasters. That's what our deck does. Alright, our opponent has had enough and I don't blame them. Anything I want to do differently? I don't think so. That felt pretty effective. So let's just go right back in. I don't think we can keep a hand like this. It's aggressive. I think we have to keep this one. And what are we putting back? We have a card we can't cast that is an important card. We could just jam Territorial Kavu. I think we'll just throw a Kavu back. We're going to use the Deeproot Wayfinder to hopefully surveil us towards something a little bit better. We can cast the Sheoldred's Edict using our Lotus Petal as well. If that's what this game ends up being about. No play from our opponent. Curious. Another Lotus Petal. Let's play out some Lotus Petals. We can just make lots of guys this turn. Right, let's make the Deeproot Wayfinder first. A round of days. And then let's play this Territorial Kavu. Is there any point in playing this Kavu? It does help us filter. If that's important to us. But it's only a 1-1. Do I want a 1-1 or do I want to keep the mana for the... I think I want to keep the mana for the Sheoldred's Edict here. This does give us more looks at cards because we can discard a card to draw a card. But what are we looking to draw? Land? So I guess it'd just be like whatever the next card we draw is. I think not being on Sheoldred's Edict feels sketchy here. Still no threat from our opponent. Another Lotus Petal. Let's see if we can find a land. Put on top of my library, please. No, actually no. We put it into the graveyard and then we put it into play off of the Wayfinder, don't we? That's the correct way of doing that. So now we can play out our Lotus Petal and we can cast our Territorial Kavu. I don't want our opponent to know we have action, so I'm going to cast it using this. Also, they might have interaction for Lotus Petals. And cards in hand can get cycled with the Kavu and stuff. Alright, our Territorial Kavu is in. We have a Sheoldred's Edict that we can play, but not a round of days. Our opponent hasn't made a threat yet. If we wait till our turn, we can do it a round of days. A Pendle Haven and nothing else. What is our opponent up to? Have they pivoted into some weird, like, sideboard juke? Outland Liberator. Just a thing I want to do anything with? I don't know. I think we'll attack first, and then we'll just work out what we're doing. I think I will discard this Outland Liberator. A Caustic Bronco. We do need to find another black source. We did find another black source. Alright, let's put the Bronco in. We don't have a scrub land, so we can't get the Verdant Catacombs to pop off and make our Territorial Kavu that much bigger. We need a black source. A Blighted Agent. Okay. Let's crack this. We want a black source. Doesn't matter what sort of black source it is. Probably Bayou is fine. We already have two. We could just get another one like this in case we draw some bolts and things down the line. I think that's reasonable. I think we attack. So we'll get the Bronco trigger first so we have more cards before we choose what we're discarding. Murderous Cut. Okay. So now discard this Deeproot Wayfinder. We have a Bowmasters. It's a big chunk of life. And we can get back our Verdant Catacombs as well. Into our graveyard, we don't need to draw this. Yes, I would like to get the Verdant Catacombs back. So now we're going to try and fight over this now. We only have the one black source is the problem. Our opponent's got 5 cards in hand. If it's something like Legolas's Quick Reflexes, we can't beat that with a Murderous Cut. So I think we're on Sheoldred's Edict. Non-token creature, please. Maybe our lack of black mana could end up costing us here, because we can't fire off 2 removal spells in one go. If they've got a Spell Pierce, we can pay. Is it Spell Pierce? Spell Snare. Okay. Let's hope that us not having the second black mana yet doesn't lose us the game immediately. Right, so it's a 2-3. They have to have the win here. 6. They got Berserk or another Invigorate. Vines of Vast with this gives it +4/+4. Yep, that's unfortunate. If we'd have just had a second black mana, then we could interact with this twice, and I think we are absolutely fine there. But it was close match. I think the deck gave a pretty good account for itself. The only thing we lost there was due to our mana. Maybe we should have used our Simian Spirit Guide earlier and saved a Lotus Petal. So yeah, maybe we should have won that one really. I was trying to hold this back as like a secret thing to play around soft permission. But maybe it's just better to make sure we could cast our spells, really. Alright, let's go to round 2. I think our hand is pretty good. And we can keep this one. But this basic forest has come up twice and shrunk the size of our Territorial Kavu and also been like just worse than a Bayou for us. Alright. Let me play out this Ignoble Hierarch. Let's play out this Lotus Petal first. Play out this Ignoble Hierarch. And we can fire in a Bowmasters, then untap and just cast another Bowmasters, and just keep casting Bowmasters against our opponent who is a blue deck. Alright, getting some free damage there off of our Bowmasters. Let's ping away over here for one. We can attack with a 3/3 Orc army next turn. Alright, so we're probably looking at some sort of blue-white control deck. That's what this Prismatic Vista says. They're getting rid of our Hierarch. That's annoying for us. I don't think we just immediately fire this. Our opponent's done a Ponder. Maybe they've set up like a Terminus. But then why would they Prismatic Ending there? A Stone Forge Mystic. Just going to get Cauldron, or are they in Batterskull mode? They're in Batterskull mode. Right, we're going to fire this in. We need to get a little bit more work done right now. Let's get ping, grow our guy. We can attack with everything, and that way we still have a Bowmasters. And if they block, we get to take out their guy. In with all creatures. They're not going for the block here. So we need a red source. Probably want a Plateau just to grow our Kavu. Red, green. Let's make a large creature. We can't make this any bigger though, because we don't have the blue source. It's going to be a Plow? No. So I can put in a Batterskull. Right, they're going to ending our Kavu and hold up the Batterskull. Alright. Simian Spirit Guide. Does that change anything here? No. Right, I think we attack with everything. And then we aim to ping down either our Bowmaster or we ping them and grow the Orc army to trade with the Batterskull. Put in a Batterskull here and just try and gain the life. Okay, they're just going to block here, are they? That is interesting. There is the Batterskull. They didn't gain any life that turn. Now, the Germ does have Vigilance, which means they do get a free stab at us here. That takes them to 8. But all their cantrips are off. Okay, I think we need to try and make a big Orc army this turn. This also gives us lethal if we find a removal spell for this Germ token. This looks like a hard cast Force of Will. But I don't think we have a choice to play around it. Oh wow, nothing. Just send in the clowns for Exacties. Alright, so we're gaining some life. And they're going to bounce their Batterskull and then replay their Batterskull. Snapcaster. Alright, they're going to take out another guy. What happened to our board? We had such a great board and now it's all gone. I think the hard blue-white control deck might be a bit of a stretch for the poor little 2-drop aggro deck. Now we are essentially just the Grizzly Bear deck. Alright, so now instead of bouncing and doing that, they can just equip onto the Snapcaster. Yikes. That's pretty bad news for us. We can cast another Murderous Cut. I don't think we're going to win this game anymore. It slipped away from us somewhat. So what do I like in this matchup? Doorkeeper Thrull could kind of do something. This is definitely a matchup where Shaper's Sanctuary is a card that we're looking at. So let's just have a look at our removal suite and put it over to one side. I don't really want the Ethersworn Canonist here. Doorkeeper Thrull shuts down our own Orcish Bowmasters. But that's it. And it shuts down their Snapcaster. But I think we can shut off their graveyard with our Dauthi Voidwalker and stuff like that anyway. I think we're just looking for 2 Shaper's Sanctuary. And maybe that means we're just trimming some fast mana. I'm just curious, how much of this removal do we need? A Lightning Bolt is reach as well. And then we're just going to board out a couple of bits of fast mana because this game can go a little bit slower. We definitely don't want Blood Moons because our opponent's just going to fetch basics. Right, this hand looks A-OK to me. Our opponent might have a back to basics, so I am going to fetch a basic forest here. Sorry, Territorial Kavu. Not going to get the food you want just yet. But we can do a turn 2 breakout. Prismatic Vista. Are we going to see a Ponder here? Or is it just going to be an ending? It's going to be an ending. Yep. So Wooded Foothills, we would like a red mana source. I think this is the Plateau. So the next one can get the Bayou and we can just make the bigger Territorial Kavu. So red, green. Let's break out. Caustic Bronco is more cards. Orcish Bowmasters is just a good card. What do I prefer here? I think it's the Bowmasters. It's just so good against blue decks. And it's got haste, so it gets in for 1. The Bronco would have given us 2 more damage. Sorry, 1 more damage. But I guess the ping is kind of the same. But this way we can shut down some cantrips. Our Wastelands are probably going to be very bad in this matchup. However, our opponent will have some number of Tundras in their deck. And their deck is one that's designed to not really care about Wasteland. But if at any point they ever do care about Wasteland, then Wasteland is really clutch. But it doesn't feel like that's going to be one of those games. Would I rather get his Orcish Bowmasters down or get a Territorial Kavu going? I think I'd rather get the Bowmasters down just proactively. So this is the Bayou like we discussed before. I think it's the Bayou over the Badlands. Or, actually no, is it the Badlands? Because that way it can't be Wastelanded off. If our opponent has anything like that. So our opponent have a Brainstorm they're going to fire from response. No, they've got a Force of Will. Right, we'll peck away for 1. Oh, our opponent doesn't have a 3rd land. That's exciting for me. So we can leave this Lotus Petal in hand as a thing that we can loot away. Let's just play the Kavu. Alright, we've got a big creature. Okay, we no longer have a big creature. A little bit late, Shaper Sanctuary, but here you are. I don't believe we're playing any of these cards in our hand. We can save them for some of the looting that we can get down the line. So our opponent's hand is just stacked full of like removal spells or whatever. I will play our Bayou though. I don't believe this Orc army is going to do enough to win us the game. Our opponent might even have an answer, they just don't care. A Brainstorm, sure. Are they Brainstorm locked? Possibly. Okay, they are not Brainstorm locked. They're just going to go and get this Batterskull probably, and that's going to beat us in the fair creature combat stakes. Yep, our opponent has identified that is the case. Sheoldred's Edict. That plays here. Each opponent sacrifices a non-token creature. Each opponent. Now, Batterskull is a thing they can cast in a few turns, but our opponent has been missing land drops. Okay, they're getting close to just casting the Batterskull. This is going to get back the Brainstorm, I think. Oh, they're going for the ending. Are they just going to ending our Shaper Sanctuary here? Yep, okay. So our Shaper Sanctuary did nothing. Not really the flavour of control deck where it shines best. Caustic Bronco. Alright, we're attacking with our Orc army here. Okay, we're getting a trade. Oh no, what is this? Let's get the Bronco out. And we'll pass. Maybe we could have just shaved the Wasteland here. We're building. Right, so just going to slam the Batterskull now. No, they're going to go extra conservative here and just try and kill everything we do. That's fine too. I think I like the Batterskull here more. But obviously, they don't know what the 2 cards in our hand are. Yeah, we just got nothing here. This is much less convincing of this deck than the first round was. First round felt like we only marginally lost that one due to a bit of unlucky mana. Whereas this time, we are just getting ruined. Yeah, we're done here. We're not going to come back from this. Yeah, that was a very quick match where we just got absolutely handled by like a Stoneforge deck there. Batterskull is certainly better than Grizzly Bears. Alright, let's go to round 3. Okay. We can Bronco or Kavu. And then just keep drawing extra cards with the Bronco. And Wasteland our opponent until something else materializes as the thing we want to do. Begin with the Wooded Foothills so that we can go and get whatever land without having to worry about being wastelanded. An Elvish Reclaimer. It's a pretty good one. Murderous Cut. We're not really in the market for that just yet. But we do want to be putting cards into our graveyard. So this one gets us a Bayou. And this one wants to get us a red source that's also white, so I guess that's Plateau. And we'll jam the Bronco here. This can dig us towards some more answers. We can Wasteland Murderous Cut next turn. Just something I'm interested in. But Wasteland doesn't really work while Reclaimer's just sat there. But we can just put a Wasteland in play and then it makes anything they shoot it for immediately destroyable for us, which is kind of annoying for them. But once they get enough lands in the graveyard, our Bronco is no longer going to be a viable attacker. A Cradle. Green Sun Zenith X equals 1. What is this going to be? An Ignoble Hierarch. So our opponent's given us the opportunity to Wasteland and Murderous Cut, which I don't hate. We take out the Cradle, we take out the Savannah. Then we take out the Savannah with the idea of trying to kill our opponent's Mana Dork next turn. Whoa, look at that. Free draw. No downside. Beautiful. Dark Confident how we've missed you. But now you're back in horse form. So white was the removal colour, which is why we hit the Savannah there. So they're representing an endurance here. A breakout. I do like breakouts, but breakout could hit an Orcish Bowmasters, which would be very, very high value right now. Alright. Let's go for this Orcish Bowmasters. Let's see if it's in there. Haven't found one yet, so statistically... Right, we didn't quite get where we wanted to be. I like the Dauthi Voidwalker here, more than the Bronco. We could just bash with the Voidwalker. I am worried about an endurance here. I think... Are we attacking with both? If they have an endurance, that is a huge blowout for us. I don't think we can attack into the endurance. If they don't play it this turn, then I think we can attack next turn. An endurance. Alright. They're probably going to get rid of our graveyard since we've shown them a delve spell already. So our Sheoldred's Edict is not looking very good right now. It's just going to take away their worst creature, and they've got a lot of creatures. They're going to natural order us. Or is this a Green Sun Zenith? I'm not expecting natural orders from our opponent. That's normally the sort of green-black deck. An Orcish Bowmasters. What does that realistically do here? Not a lot. But they probably have to attack with the endurance. This does give them something that can block the Caustic Bronco. Because if they just sit here and don't do anything, then our Dauthi Voidwalker will chip away at them. But they've got loads of mana. Green Sun Zenith X was 4. Is this Questing Beast? Can't think of any other 4-drops there. I guess it could be the Undermountain Adventurer, but we can easily take the initiative because we have a shadow creature. Oh, it's just a Grist. Okay. We're going to lose our Caustic Bronco, or is it our Dauthi Voidwalker? Here's the Dauthi Voidwalker. Makes sense because this can just go and kill the Grist otherwise. Paducah Bog, yep. We get it. We don't have a graveyard. Are they attacking with endurance? I don't think so because they probably want to protect their Grist. Okay. Each opponent sacrifice... let's make sure we have our mana in a row here first. So we want another black land. So I guess it's probably the Badlands here. So we want to be able to cast Territorial Kavu. So we need to keep green. Each opponent sacrifices a Planeswalker, please. We need to keep green black. So that's these two. Sorry, green red. Now we have the biggest game in town. I don't believe I'm attacking my Caustic Bronco in here. Even though we can saddle it up. That seems like a bit fast and loose. So we've got Savannah, we can loot away with our Kavu when it attacks. A very nice plains, the old classic sunflower art one. Yuck. Nike the Reliquary. That, if it untaps, I think we just lose to that. That card is pretty scary. Murderous Cut. Okay. Okay. Let's attack. We can loot away this Savannah. We could remove the Savannah from our opponent's graveyard to shrink a creature. Like the Knight of the Reliquary. But I think getting the Savannah and maybe finding a better card is going to work nicely for us. They can put Endurance and something else in front of our Territorial Kavu. They have an Orcish Bowmasters here. Do I care about this Bowmasters ping? As a thought. If they ping us, they get another blocker. I don't think we're supposed to... I think we're just supposed to remove that card from the graveyard now, thinking about it. Oh, this is a... I think we have to do, isn't it? Once we click to do it. We have drawn an Orcish Bowmasters of our own, though. Let's see how our opponent blocks here. Like, we have to Murderous Cut the Knight of the Reliquary. That's a given. But if our opponent like blocks with Endurance and Orc Army, we can then ping down the Orc Army, Murderous Cut the Knight, and we're in a pretty solid position. Our opponent gets a crack at us. Right, here we go. Get the nice blowout here. So we just gobble this up. And we continue to gobble up their creatures. Black and this. Let's cut that Knight. And now we're in a pretty solid position. Our opponent's got 2 cards in hand after their draw step. They've got a lot of mana to work with. Like 7 mana, they're pretty close to... Alright, once upon a time. I'm going to say they're pretty close to Crater Hoof, but I don't think they are a Crater Hoof deck. That's normally the straight up black-green decks. This feels more like in the sort of Maverick ballpark. But it's just splashing black for Bowmasters, so like Abzan Maverick. Okay, maybe we are like full Cradle Control then. I'll take it back. Alright, there's a 5/5 guy. Our opponent is Hellbent though. That's not the one we want. So we can attack with this and remove a thing from their graveyard and just keep the pressure up. That seems okay to me. We don't really want to draw extra cards whilst we've got these X1s. And we'll get rid of this Endurance, or we'll get rid of the Knight, I suppose. That shrinks their Fiend Artisan. So it can't just have a clean block here. Green, red, Let's get this Territorial Kavu on the go. So we can shrink their Fiend Artisan by 2 whilst attacking with our large creatures. Like if these were Tarmogoyfs instead of the Kavus, they'd be 4/5s, but they wouldn't be removing cards from our opponent's graveyard. So it's kind of interesting to keep track of that. An Endurance. Okay. I'm going to get rid of our graveyard just because we have Murderous Cuts, but they're just shuffling that cut back in where we can draw it again. Okay, now we're going to see another Knight of the Reliquary, I suspect. And they're sacrificing their Dryad Arbor because it's a creature and a land, so it will pump their Fiend Artisan and their Knight. Our opponent's thinking on this one a while. Renegade Rallier is what they've gone for in the end. So this gets back a permanent from their graveyard. Yeah, that's pretty good. Alright, deck, we need something good here. A Lightning Bolt. That is good. That allows us to kill the Fiend Artisan as well. So this attacks, this attacks. Get some triggers. I'd like to exile a card from their graveyard. We'll take this Dryad Arbor. I'd like to exile up to 1 card from graveyard. I'll take this Grist. Let's see what blocks our opponent lines up with and see if we want to be blowing them out with a Lightning Bolt or just taking care of this Fiend Artisan. Should also just bolt the Bow Boys. Right, this is going to get us a 2-for-1. So we just have to take the value here. And clear 2 of their things off the board. Like we're keeping their Fiend Artisan in check because we're just constantly growing. We're constantly shrinking it. I think I will play out this Sim Spirit Guide. We're getting close to just being able to do an Alpha Strike. Or forcing them to at least block our Kavus and send stuff into... Okay, our opponent didn't draw anything there, so they have to Green Sun Zenith for something. Not Green Sun Zenith, sorry. Fiend Artisan for something if they want a follow-up here. They've got a lot of mana, but they've shown us they don't have anything really big because they would have got it earlier. So we're probably just looking at like Knights and Endurances, Renegade Ralliers, that sort of thing. They could just get more Fiend Artisans. But Fiend Artisans feel less good against the Kavu, which is really impressing me in this game. Graveyard hate does matter. X equals 2. Is this just another Fiend Artisan? A Scavenging Ooze. Okay, so they're going to try and grow this Scavenging Ooze to be bigger than our creatures. That's pretty smart. Also gives them a little bit of life to work with. Very annoying for us. A Simian Spirit Guide. How many lands do they have in their graveyard? 1. They can put 2 lands in their graveyard. This is only creature cards, isn't it? That it cares about. Intriguing. Kind of want to saddle this now. Then we're going to saddle this. And we'll tap this and the Bowmasters. It has been saddled. We go to attacks. Alright, we'll go for their Savannah here. And they don't really care about these. Right, we'll get rid of this. So our opponent's going to lose the life for this Caustic Bronco. Sure. They're growing their ooze. So there's a chance that we lose... There's a very high chance that we lose one of our Territorial Kavus, although we have just drawn an Orcish Bowmasters, which is not nothing. Alright, so we get this block off. If our opponent activates the Scavenging Ooze, that's a mistake. No, it's not. They're doing it with 4 damage, actually, so it's not a mistake. And so, yeah. So we're going to lose our Kavu here. But we're going to trim some more stuff off their board. And we've got this Bowmaster kicking around that we can do some stuff with. There's a limit to the amount of life this Scavenging Ooze can gain. What is their Reclaimer going to find? Is it Lair of the Hydra? That's pretty solid here. There's a lot going on in this game. A Thespian stage. Okay. Our opponent wants to get Marillage with it. And I can't blame them. Okay, so their Reclaimers are going to be 3/4s as well once they fire them off. I think in our opponent's end step it's worth firing this off. We don't get to kill anything with it, unfortunately. But this gives us options of trying to kill them with a Caustic Bronco trigger. We draw a land, which is bad. We can either mess with their graveyard, or we can discard this and try and find something. They can make a Marillage this turn. It costs them 1 Reclaimer. 1, 2, 3, 4 blockers. 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, let's saddle up. So this is probably Spirit Guide plus Bowmasters. We're going to lose to Marillage next turn. So we need this Caustic Bronco plus this Territorial Kavu to do the work. So I will discard a card and draw a card. That's the state we're in here. We need like Lightning Bolt and Murderous Cut on the top of our deck in the correct order here. You got to play to your outs. Alright. They should be gaining some life here first. Because they've already seen Murderous Cut in our deck. So this attack is obviously going to end pretty badly for us. But we had to make it because we're dead next turn regardless. So we had this one turn to try and find something. Caustic Bronco might be able to do it in terms of the Sheoldred's Edict. We just need to hope our opponent forgets to gain life with their Scavenging Ooze. With their 1 mana floating, I'm not convinced they're going to forget. There it is. Alright. What are you going to show us, Caustic Bronco? Oh no, they're not done yet. They're just gaining some more life. Alright. An Elvish Spirit Guide. So now we are dead. Alright, so let's go to game 2, I think. Wow, that was a long one. Okay. So our opponent has some fancy lands. Maybe we want to mess with our opponent's fancy lands. Certainly an option. Containment Priest does seem good against some of the stuff they've got going on. I don't like the Ouphes. I don't think the Sanctuary is where I want to be either. Our opponent's more about creatures. Is this spell or ability? Whenever a creature you control becomes a spell or ability. So maybe this does things. This goes very strange with Orcish Bowmasters. It is a May though. Doorkeeper Thrull can deal with Renegade Rallier, but a lot of their other stuff is just good solo cards, so I'm not really convinced about that. I think we definitely want these, and we need to keep our removal in. I think we need some amount of fast mana, but not necessarily all of the fast mana. I like all of these cards, which is a little bit annoying for us. The Spirit Guides do help us make the Blood Moons. This deck is really horrible to sideboard with, actually. It's got so many, like, essential moving parts. Like, we're getting rid of Hierarchs to this stuff. Hierarch on turn 1 makes Blood Moon on turn 2, so maybe that's better than these. These tap for either colour, so I think that's better than the other ones. That still leaves us 2 cards to find. Like, removing their graveyard is good. Wasteland and them, like, all this stuff is just good. Maybe the Bronco's slightly weaker here because they're going to have lots of creatures to block with. How good is Bowmasters? It pings down their mana dork, especially when we're on the play. That seems really good. What does this hand do? Turn 1, Hierarch. Turn 2, do some other stuff. I'll take it. So if that was a piece of fast mana instead, we could have like made a Bronco or a Kavu on turn 1. That's worth thinking about. So are we playing the Deeproot Wayfinder next? We're playing the Kavu. I guess it depends what our opponent does. If our opponent starts in with like a mana dork, then we just play the Bowmasters and pick it off. There's a mana dork. They're ploughing our guy instead. Alright, a little bit rude, but it is what it is. Okay, so this needs to get us a Badlands. So that gives us, rounds out our colours for like what our deck wants to be doing. Do I want a Kavu or a Wayfinder? I think the Surveil is really, really nice here. So we can Bowmasters down their Hierarch if they play one. We didn't want to just hold up Bowmasters because if they play something like an Elvish Reclaimer instead of the Hierarch, then we've done nothing because our Bowmasters doesn't really work favourably into that. So we just want to get stuff in play and then use Orcish Bowmasters as a reactive thing that we do on our own turn rather than holding it up. Obviously things can change as the game develops, but at this early stage of the game we need to try and keep up the tempo because our opponent's got some big mid-rangey cards I don't really want to have to face. So if we can kind of get underneath that or, you know, start chipping away for those last points of damage, that'd be really good. We've got the Bolt if they've got a Reclaimer. A Scavenging Ooze. That was one of the things that kind of took us for a bit of a spin last time, so I'm very much in favour of lightning bolting this creature. We'll get our... So we've already got a fetch land in the graveyard, so we're guaranteed the card draw for this. A Territorial Kavu. Do I want this? It's just a meaty guy. I think we're going to put this into the graveyard for now. And now we want a red source here, so we may as well get the Plateau. And I think we just drop the Kavu and just have a really big beater, since our opponent's about to be going into potential endurance mana. So we want to have a thing that can attack into endurance safely. Because the Deeproot Wayfinder might not be able to attack next turn if our opponent just holds open 3 mana, 2 of it being green. I think my comment about the Bronco being a bit awkward in this matchup is showing. Alright, so this looks like an endurance to me. Lotus Petal doesn't really do the things we need it to do. I think I will discard a card and discard this Lotus Petal. We've got Scavenging Ooze of our very own. That is a quite nice one here. Okay, that's something that can easily attack into our opponent. If they've got endurance, they probably want to fire off now. But we can see who they target, and then we can remove the relevant creature. Okay, who are you going to target with this? Targeting us. Alright, we'll crack this for a green source. Is it Taiga here? No, it's the Bayou, isn't it? I think we need additional black for removal and stuff. I will exile this Territorial Kavu and get that sweet value of growing our friend. Means we don't have any fetch lands in the graveyard for Deeproot Wayfinder, but that's kind of blocked now by the endurance. So we have 2 4/4 attackers for next turn. We've got the beef. That's what's happening right now. A Fiend Artisan. Okay. And that Noble Hierarch we saw earlier. And a Windswept Teeth. So we can exile the creature in their graveyard. And then we can Bowmasters that down. Right, let's exile their Scavenging Ooze. We can Bowmasters here. Ping down the Fiend Artisan. What is going on here? We do have one more activation of our Scavenging Ooze. Underground Mortuary. Yeah, so we'll have this covered with our Scavenging Ooze activation. Now, we could have done that later while I had 1 damage on anyway. It didn't really matter. But now we have to make some choices here. I think we're attacking with these 2. I think we're just going to start exiling cards from our opponent's graveyard. How many lands? We've got 2 lands. We've got 1 creature. I think we're looking at taking out the lands now. And we are very much the beatdown here. And our opponent's in a pretty awkward spot next turn. Alright. We got to win there. How do I feel about the Caustic Bronco versus some of our other things? It doesn't feel like the place I need to be. So I think we're going to take them all out and then bring in a little bit more fast mana. I just don't like the fact that we can't reliably attack with it into our opponent's creature heavy deck. If we had a little bit more removal to back it up, that'd be a different matter. But instead we're just going to get like endurances and knights and Fiend Artisans just clogging us up. Not quite the same as Dark Confident. Dark Confident you just kept at home. It's when the Dark Confident starts attacking that your opponent has to decide whether you're trying to get it killed or not. 2 removal spells, a creature that grows and messes with a lot of the synergy in their deck. This feels very strong. We can actually cast all our spells as well, which is something I'm a fan of too. If our opponent plays a Mana Dork on turn 1, we can ramp out a Bowmasters, and that'll be very solid. If our opponent plays the Reclaimer, okay, they've done the Hierarch, that's good for us. So we need to get a black source. So this turns into a Bayou. And then we cast Orcish Bowmasters with black, and I think it's the Spirit Guide here, because that gives us instant speed bolt whenever we want it. It's close though, because that's an instant speed activation off of our Scavenging Ooze. An Elvish Reclaimer, we have that covered with a lightning bolt. There's nothing to Wasteland here, is there? So we probably want a Plateau just for down the line. Let's bolt this creature. They got crop rotation. They haven't shown us a crop rotation yet. Underground Mortuary. Oh yeah, that's true. It's an annoying one. If they mill a land, they get to save their guy. Oof. That was a pretty sick blowout there. And we still get to attack with both of our creatures, so. And we'll cast our Scavenging Ooze. Yeah, maybe we're supposed to wait for them to crack that fetch. We were trying to push damage. I guess we could have attacked, and if they blocked, then we get to do stuff. It's going to be hard to keep this guy off of its size, though. Territorial Kavu. I do like the big Kavu. Just want a green source here. Probably just a Bayou again. Could be a Taiga here. It rounds out our colours a little bit nicely. But if we need double black for removal, I think it probably is the Bayou still. And now we're just going to sit here and devour all of our opponent's graveyard over the course of a few turns. And hope that does enough to keep us in this game. Our opponent gets to develop quite a lot now. I don't believe they can Merit Lage combo us next turn. Okay. If they have a Thespian Stage in hand, then they can. But they might not see this Wasteland coming. We'll see. Savannah. Thespian Stage. Right, let's get rid of this Noble Hierarch and gain life. Okay, let's go to our main phase. Then we're okay here. Let's get that down straight away. So we attack with the Kavu. Then we exile one of their lands. There's so many in there though. Let's Drop another Kavu, red and green. And then we hope that our Wasteland does enough. Bayou, 3 cards left in our opponent's hand. As long as we've got this Wasteland up, our opponent kind of has to pivot off this unless they want to fetch a Wasteland. But if they don't have the mana up, they can't do that. So they need to have one more land before they can fetch the Wasteland with the Reclaimer. And that might be too late. Also, when they activate Thespian Stage Taiga in the Dark Depths, they end up with 2 lands in their graveyard, so it's going to be very hard to shrink this Reclaimer so it's small enough for us to attack. Right, so this means next turn they can do the play I just mentioned. We'll keep chugging away at their graveyard. It's not useless. Right, let's just shrink their graveyard some more. I guess we could have attacked with the Ooze here. So now Marit Lay shouldn't be enough to win this game either. Unless they got some kind of like fling, Minsk and Boo type action. But the only red mana we've seen is the Hierarch, so I expect this is just a black-green dork rather than a... They're actually playing red. A green Sun Zenith. Let's flash in this Containment Priest and turn that right off. This stops our opponent from getting the Dryad Arbor. They should just fail to find here. So that doesn't give them enough blockers to survive now. Right, let's shrink their guy a bit more. Our opponent's on 3. I believe we just jam with all of our friends. So I would like to discard a card and draw a card. And discard a card and draw a card. What if they drew a Bowmaster? They take out that. So they have an Endurance here. That shuffles in our graveyard. That's fine. Alright, we managed to get a game there. A match. That was quite a fun one. A lot of back and forth. Kind of played a bit like a limited matchup where we're just trying to do creature mass, which is not necessarily my strong point. But we managed to get there in the end. Let's go to round 4. So we are faced with one of the problems with our deck, which is that we are very stacked in the 2-drop slot, which can mean we don't do anything on turn 1. This hand is pretty reasonable though, so I will keep it. Making a hasty guy on turn 2, kind of. Oh no. Our opponent is probably playing Mississippi River here, which means we could be dead next turn if we don't Wasteland. The other option there is to try and get a Deeproot Wayfinder so we can start looping our Wastelands, but I just don't think we have that luxury, because if our opponent has the Throes of Chaos, we just lose. Let's play Wooded Foothills. Our Deeproot Wayfinder might be too slow, so we might just have to break out here. Right, we live to fight another day. There's marginal thinning possibilities to get us closer to a Wasteland. So we'll get this Bayou here. Simian Spirit Guide. Does that do anything here? No, not really. So this is... We go and get the Badlands here, or the Taiga. Green. We have a lot of black in our hand. We get the Badlands, I think. Let's cast Breakout. So red and green. This is going to be a rough matchup, I think. I guess we get this Territorial Kavu. So the mistake we made was not using the Spirit Guide for this. Because if this loots into... so if we go... Discard a card. So if we find a Wasteland here... yeah. The exact cool shot that I had there. A breakout into Territorial Kavu. Yikes. Does our opponent have Creative Technique? Or they do. So we could have put this off for a turn. Now that might still not be good enough anyway. Throes of Chaos. Though they can whiff on this one. So this can hit the Tybalt's Trickery, but if they Tybalt's Trickery into Tybalt's Trickery, then they can still lose. We can have a look at our opponent's deck, but it's just going to be the same thing. This deck builds itself. It's not very exciting to me. Ooh, they hit a Tybalt's Trickery. Oh, and another one. Wow. Okay, the last one hit the Maelstrom Wanderer. We nearly got there. I guess this can just hit Throes of Chaos. Trumpeting Carnosaur. Yep. Okay, so this hits the Throes of Chaos, which shouldn't do anything at this point. I guess it gives their Trumpeting Carnosaur more damage. And we're probably just going to lose to the Carnosaur and Maelstrom Wanderer anyway. Tali. Sure, that does some nonsense. Yeah, we're not coming back from this. Oh, yeah. That play that we could have made could have set this back another turn. Possibly 2 turns. That might have been enough to get us there. Alright. I am not really a fan of this deck, as you probably know if you've if you've watched my channel. Doorkeeper Thrull stops Trumpeting Carnosaur. Ethersworn Canonist stops their whole deck. Blood Moon massively increases how much it costs them to do anything. Containment Priest doesn't do anything here because that's not what Cascade does. I don't think we're needing to remove our opponent's things really here. That's not what this game is going to be about. Scavenging Ooze doesn't seem great either. So we can take out these 6 and leave in 2 lightning bolts for reach. That's a possibility. Or we could just have the Scavenging Ooze as another creature to beat down. But I think having reach might end up being useful for us. It's either that or we put in like a Sheoldred's Edict in case they manage to cast one of their guys. I don't hate that. Let's try that. Yeah, this matchup's probably not going to be great for us. But that's what happens when you play the Mississippi River deck. Like, you have a bunch of matchups that are really easy and a bunch of matchups that are like unwinnable for you. And the deck kind of does all the deciding for you. There's not a lot of play to the Mississippi River deck. Or any, really. But not my cup of tea, that one. What white source can we get with this? Savannah? That shuts us off of red. We can't get Plateau with it. But we have red off of the Hierarch, don't we? So this gets us a white source. I think it has to be Savannah. Play the Canonist. This shuts down our opponent's combo. And then we can just start doing breakout, Territorial Kavu type stuff. Trumpeting Carnosaur is a thing they can do stuff with to kill our Canonist. Which incentivizes us to break out looking for another Canonist. So we want a red source. It's probably Badlands here. It's better for the majority of the cards in our deck. Okay, I'll take this Territorial Kavu. And we will be discarding a card to draw a card. I think we get rid of the Bronco here. A Wasteland. Again, maybe we shouldn't have used our mana the way we did. We're going to see Trumpeting Carnosaur channeled here. And getting rid of our Canonist. We'll get Taiga. Yeah, so we could have done that off the Ignoble Hierarch and had the chance of drawing the Wasteland there. We just put ourselves in the exact same spot that we lost the first game with. Now, it doesn't stop us from losing the game. It stops us losing the game for 1 turn. But treading water can be alright. A Violent Outburst. So this is going to hit a Tyvolt's Trickery. And let's see what the Tyvolt's Trickery finds. An Apex Devastator. Well, that is unsurprisingly devastating. Trumpeting Carnosaur. Do I want to keep playing this game? I don't believe I do. Because they don't need to demonstrate with their thing. They can just win the game, yeah. Alright. That was a tough one. We could have played this matchup differently and got another turn in both of the games. Although it wouldn't have made a difference there because our opponent was doing Violent Out. But I guess, yeah, we take them off of red. But this gets tapped for red-green anyway. So that turn didn't actually matter if we did it or not. And the previous one, we would have slowed them down for 1 turn and that was it. It just feels like a horrible matchup, but I'm not a fan of this deck. I don't think Mississippi River is a problem deck because it's like unplayable against large chunks of the format. And then just sometimes you get decks where you just roll and it's not really up to you whether you win or lose with it. So it's not really my sort of deck. All right, let's go to the final round. We are at a very sad looking 1 and 3. So let's see if we can put a 2-3 on the board for a little bit of dignity. Once again, we are a touch slow with what we're doing here, but we're on the play this time. But Wasteland is pretty devastating for us. I think we're just going to mulligan, try to get something that gets us on the board a little bit quicker. Right, this is on the board, isn't it? I think I'm going to ditch the Murderous Cut here. And this will fetch us a basic forest. Just keep our mana rolling here. We're going to want lots of green sources when we start doing Scavenging Ooze stuff anyway. Right, so over to our opponent. An island. Just an innocent basic island. I'll play this Deeproot Wayfinder around days. And then we'll jam in with our Hierarch. For an almighty 1 point of damage. Take that, enemy. They just had like a basic island they didn't have to fetch. That does suggest to me that our opponent might not be particularly susceptible to Wastelands. Cycling a Troll of Khazad-dûm. So we could be looking at blue-black scan here. Or we could be looking at Rescaminator. We're going to get punished for... Okay, this could be the bug scam list. Or it could be like bug beans. With some extra scam tech thrown in. Okay. So if we had just played out the Scavenging Ooze, we could have done things differently here. And just held up the Scavenging Ooze activation. Unfortunately for us, that isn't what happened. Let's play this Wasteland. Scavenging Ooze. And yes, I will be Wastelanding our opponent here. We then get to attack this turn. A Stifle. A very rude stifle. So we're going to take 6. But then we can clap back for a decent chunk here. Brainstorm from our opponent. We haven't shown them red mana outside of the Hierarchs. They might just think this is for black-green. So we might be able to maybe mess up their calculations if we draw a bolt down the line. A Wasteland. An Orcish Bowmasters, you say? Poor little guy. Right, he'll then get exiled. Get fed into the grinder that is our Scavenging Ooze. Crash for 6. That's fine. Elvish Spirit Guide, not particularly enthused by that. Let's go attacks. I think we need to get our Surveil action on here. They'll probably just chump block the Deeproot Wayfinder and then take... Okay, they're going to chump block them both. It's acceptable to me as well. Do I want to start messing with our opponent's things, or do I want to just get more creatures on the board? If we get more creatures on the board, what does that do for us? Gives us the ability to clap back and gain some more life, perhaps. Right, I'm going to cast this, I think. So they crack us for 6. Or it's effectively 5 because we got 1 loaded into the Scavenging Ooze. Then we crack back for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we have the race in our favour right now, provided our opponent doesn't do anything. If we can untap and then start wastelanding our opponent a bit more, then that'll be good. But if they're worried about that, they just wasteland our wasteland right now. Right, and they come for 6. They could have another Bowmasters. That'd be pretty solid here. They didn't wasteland us though. A Lotus Petal. That's not a very useful Magic the Gathering card, is it? We play it out still. Let's hit the... Okay, this feels like an Orcish Bowmaster. A Fatal Push. Okay. Let's get rid of their Bowmasters. Just get rid of our Deeproot Wayfinder. Now we are the beatdown. This is half our opponent's life total, so if they attack with their troll and do nothing else, we will win the game. It's interesting they got rid of the Deeproot Wayfinder, rather than the thing that's going to be giving us extra turns of life and beating down. That means they might have another removal spell. Ooh, back on blocks with the troll. A very sorry state of affairs there. We are kind of in a weird holding pattern now. I will play out this Lotus Petal just so we have more activations of our Ooze if we need them. I don't want to play out this red source if we don't have to. We're at a stalemate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Am I worried about Murktide? If we take out 2 cards, we can dodge the Murktide. 1, 2, 3, 4. Like, they can Wasteland. Alright, they're just doing a Brainstorm. I was going to say, they can Wasteland to make sure they get that extra card in the yard. But then we can exile stuff in response using our Lotus Petals. A Grief. You can pitch a Grief. That's just another card for us to exile with our Scavenging Ooze. We'll take that. What do they pitch to that as well? Orcish Bowmasters. Another Lotus Petal. I guess we're going to play it out. Let's get rid of this Grief. We have to lose so much if we want to try and stop a Murktide here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we have to get rid of 2 cards to stop. And they have the Wastelands. So we have to get rid of all 3 cards. And hope they don't. I don't think we can afford to try and stop the Murktide this turn. I don't know if our opponent even has Murktide. Certainly not in the main deck. If they're Scam, they might do, but if they're Rescaminator, they won't. Territorial Kavu. That's a big boy, isn't it? Not as big as I would like it to be, but it does have some interesting text here. Do I want to attack with my Scavenging Ooze? I don't think so, because things can go a bit weird still. Being able to remove their graveyard is definitely a bonus for us. Another Wasteland. We can take out our Badlands. Yep, sure. But we can force the trade here and leave them with nothing. But our Territorial Kavu is not very large. Dauthi Voidwalker. That is a handy one, isn't it? Right, so these will trade. They'll take 3, and then we'll play this, and that's lethal. This covers their graveyard as well. I think we've got a reasonable defense for whatever our opponent can have here. Alright, we got the first game. So, how do we want to go about doing this one? We don't have more graveyard hate to lean into aside from these Containment Priests, which I do think we have to bring in. The Shape of Sanctuary can protect us from some of their removal. Collector Ouphe isn't doing anything here. The Outland Liberator isn't doing anything here. Blood Moon is like a weird one because they're going to have ways they can... They've already shown us they got basics. So I'm kind of interested in the Shape of Sanctuary. The Doorkeeper Thrull stops our opponents' Orcish Bowmasters, and it stops their Archon of Cruelty. But that's it. I don't think we're going to have the space to include these. Sheoldred's Edict. Like, a lot of the stuff here just seems a-okay. I think we probably do want fast mana rather than Hierarch here when they're an Orcish Bowmasters deck. So take those 4 out, and that just gives us 4 Containment Priest straight up. Now we have to decide if we want these 2 Shaper's Sanctuaries and how best to manage that. I like all the things we have going on is the problem. Let's just quickly pull our removal to one side. Now this is all good stuff. I don't think we have the Shaper's Sanctuary. Our opponent's not going to have that much removal if they're on Rescavinator. Right, this is a turn 1 Containment Priest, a round of days. So I'm going to say, sign me up. Now the problem is, if our opponent just Grief Reanimates us, we're kind of in the dirt. Oh, there it is. Yep. Not the most enjoyable play pattern to be on the receiving end of, that's for sure. But this is why some people suspect Grief is the card that should be banned from Legacy at the moment. Obviously, Modern Horizons 3 comes out very soon, and that's just going to change the entire format looking at what's been spoiled already. So I don't mind them holding off and seeing what it does, but I was surprised to not see something from the blue-black scam deck go. Alright, I've taken our access to white mana. They're going to reanimate that. Yep, they're going for the full scam package. So now they probably take our Containment Priest, unless they're going for like the cheese line of taking the Spirit Guide. I think you just take it. Well, maybe you don't care about the Containment Priest, depends what your hand is doing. Like, if they're not doing Entomb stuff. But this isn't that scary a threat. If this is all they've got, then I'm okay, potentially. They've got Wasteland to follow up, though. Like, we have to play this out. Not a Wasteland. Glad to not see that. 2 cards left in our opponent's hand. I'm expecting Days on Orcish Bowmasters as the most likely culprits. A Lotus Petal. I think I would like a Kavu. The problem with that is, if we play Kavu and they Wasteland us, it dies. Feels like we're just going to get Days whatever we do. I think we just pass. Alright, let's play into this Days. Oh no, we just got it. Oh, they just got another reanimate spell? No. Alright, maybe we get to play Magic the Gathering. Maybe we do. So we can't get Scrubland, which would be the one we want here to give us full thing. I think we just have to get the Badlands and have like the best for our colours. Alternatively, we could get the Savannah here and just jump in the Priest and stop our opponent from doing reanimate shenanigans that way. That does take us off black mana is the problem. So you have to decide between the Priest and the Bronco. I think the Priest is better than the Bronco here. Our opponent's got mana up, so we don't need to play this right now anyway. And there's the Bowmasters. Ping us down. So now our opponent is tapped out. We could play it there, but I think we're just going to do it on our opponent's turn. And they know we have this. Alright, they have an answer for it. What is your answer? Is it Days? Petty Theft. Sure. An Orcish Bowmasters that we can't cast. Alright, I think we'll just throw this guy back in now. In comes a Containment Priest. So they're going to try and win this game with the Brazen Borrower in the sky. So we need to find a black mana source. There's a black mana source. So now we can get a Badlands. That's better than the Bayou here. Alright. The scary things our opponent can do can't really impact us. I was going to say we shut down their cantrips, but that's not true anymore. But we can start doing Kavu things and just have a very large boy just bashing away. This Kavu has impressed me. I thought it would just feel like a worse Tarmogoyf. Ah. Well, we're taking out our white source, so we still get to play our Kavu. Opponent's got 1 card in hand. If it's Days, it's Days. We'll just have to work through it. If we draw a land, then that's obviously nice. Breakout doesn't do anything because we have Containment Priest. It just puts it into our hand. So green and red. Let's make a big friend. Attack with our 1/1. Whilst they don't have mana for potential Bowmasters. Alright, they're just going to trade off armies. That's acceptable to me. That makes attacks with our Containment Priest a lot safer looking. An Uro. Okay, well we're going to exile this with our Territorial Kavu. Once again, the Kavu is really impressing me, I must say. Escape is a thing that you cast for its escape cost. So we'll definitely trigger in the way we do it in one. So we're going to attack with both creatures here. Exile up to 1 target card. Goodbye, Uro. So would I rather have... I think I'd rather have the Deeproot Wayfinder here. Just try and make sure that we don't get Wastelanded out of this game. 2/3 is a pretty reasonable body against a lot of our opponent's things. And this can maybe get us a Wasteland lock going in the future. Troll of Khazad-dûm. This gives them enough mana to hardcast Griefs. Not this turn, but future turns. Pernicious Deed, you say? That's a pretty solid one, isn't it? Would quite like to find a land so we can at least set up so the turn after they blow the deed is better. That's kind of a land. I think we're still exiling a creature card from a graveyard here. What do I not want to see reanimated? Probably the troll more than anything. Let me take out the troll. I'm going to chump block the Deeproot Wayfinder. No. I'm going to preserve their life total here. Don't really want this, do I? Verdant Catacombs is probably the best one here, isn't it? We're not playing anything else out into this deed. If they have anything they want to commit to the board now, then they're incentivized to pay 2, pop the deed, and then play it. But if they want to wait till but if they do that, we get breakout. They don't know we have the breakout. But then, if they're going to wait to pop this in our attack step, that's fine too. I would like to. What would I like to exile? I think we're just going to get rid of their Brazen Borrower rather than the Grief here, because we don't really have a lot of ways of dealing with evasive creatures. Well, they're just going to take it, are they? Very interesting. Pick up this Wasteland. So they might just get blown out by a... Yeah, they might just get blown out by a breakout next turn. Let's go into 1. Under City Sewers. I left a card on top. We're going to see the deed go. Doing of X is 3. Alright, so next turn we can break out and hopefully our opponent won't see that coming. What do they leave on top? Is it a Murktide? No. Just a Grief. Okay, so they can take out the breakout, but we have so many cards in hand. We took the breakout. Don't blame them. I'll crack this end of turn. We're getting a Bayou here, just to round out our colours nicely. We've drawn a breakout again. So, red, black here. I'll use black on this one. Yeah, red, it's green we're looking for, isn't it? Sorry. So, red, green. Let's break out. Quite like the Scavenging Ooze here. We could have got the Bowmasters. I forgot our opponent was on 1. I had them pegged on 2 for some reason. Whoops. We could have just won this game. If they block here, we can grow it twice. Yeah, we should have just got the Bowmasters then. That was just a mistake. Thought our opponent was on 2 for some reason. Because that's what they were on after the finishes. Last game of the night. I have recorded 10 rounds today. So I'll take that as a mild excuse. An Uro. Just gains them some life. But we do have a lethal threat in play. They can't take us off of green mana. They're going to take us off of a Badlands. That is not the one I thought they'd be trying to take us off of. Yeah, this Scavenging Ooze has been pretty good too. Is that a Bowmasters to block? It is a Bowmasters to block. We can live with that. We can hold up our own Bowmasters in case our opponent has anything. So they're just going to chump block. And they can chump block next turn as well. Alright. What have you got, opponent? Another Uro. It is another Uro. Alright, our opponent's had enough. And we win that match 2-0. So we finished with a 2-3. After our shaky start, that's not too bad. I thought the deck looked really, really good against the Scam deck in the last round. That did impress me. Alright, let's talk about this list. So there is a fundamental problem with Breakout as a card in Legacy. And that is, it encourages you to play a whole bunch of creatures. The issue being, creatures like of this sort of depth aren't as useful and interactive as you necessarily want. We could we've tried running things like more Dauthi Voidwalkers before, but that didn't work out amazingly for us because of the costs on it, right? I do think Caustic Bronco does give us the angle that we were looking for in terms of getting some more card advantage, but it does feel like we don't interact with our opponent enough. Like we're just saying, I hope our creatures do stuff. Now, if our opponent's relying on graveyard stuff, then the Kavu and the Ooze and the Voidwalker, they do quite a lot. And the Bowmasters, you know, it's Bowmasters. It's going to be winning you some games. But if your opponent is playing, you know, just bigger creatures than you, it can be really tricky to get through that. We've got some removal. But is that enough? Do we need more to try and punch a hole through stuff and play more like a sort of Jundy thing? Like, this is just more copies of things that we're already doing. Like, I do like the Deeproot Wayfinder. I like this deck. I like the stuff it's doing. I'm just not sure if the stuff it's doing is good enough for Legacy. What I will say, though, this build, running the Territorial Kavu was excellent. This card impressed me a lot. I don't know if I've ever actually played with this before, but this card really impressed me in play. The fact that it chews up graveyards is very real. I'll also say the mana on this build felt much better than before because we're not really trying to go for these black things. We just have, oh, we need one black pip every now and then. Our Hierarchs and our Petals can cover that as well. And we're just playing off of Bayous and Badlands. So we're reliably playing our Territorial Kavus and Breakouts. This build did just seem better to me than the one I played before. But it still has the fundamental problem of Breakout, you know, being Breakout. Maybe Modern Horizons 2 will give us some extremely pushed creatures that will make this work. I believe we could be running the... We could try a Naya Breakout deck when we get Modern Horizons 3, because what that gives you is access to that new 2/2 bear. It's like a legendary bear that makes all other creatures 2/2s. I pulled up this card. So this is the bear I was talking about. So it's a thing that gets found off of Breakout, and it makes other creatures have base power 2/2, and are bears in addition to their other types. So what this would do in like a Naya shell of this, it would mean that making 2/2s actually ends up being alright for us. And Orcish Bowmaster is not a thing that we can run in a deck. Maybe we could. Like, this deck already runs white. Maybe you can run this and still keep your Orcish Bowmasters, because that would mean that when you make an Orcish Bowmaster, the Orc army is a 2/2 that then gets a +1/+1 counter on it. So you'd end up with a bigger creature. And maybe we can find ways of leveraging our creatures to be good around Kudo. And that also gives you access to things like Gadok Teague if you're more into white, which can be a very powerful card against some of the combo matchups that are going to ruin us. So that's something to think about. I'll definitely revisit Breakout. I think it has potential, but it's just not quite there. And there's not quite the necessary cards to really take it up that next notch. But I did enjoy playing this deck today. I had some pretty cool play patterns. I like that we can sort of ditch our cards with the Territorial Kavu and come back to them. Maybe we should be leaning way more into the domain aspect and run like Tribal Flames as a bit of way of closing and just play good old-fashioned Zoo. But, you know, having some interesting creatures along the way. Maybe that's a different route we could go. Let me know your thoughts about how you think we can fix Breakout decks. I think the correct answer is let's see what Modern Horizons 3 brings and see how it changes the format. Because we might end up with a whole bunch of creatures that are worth playing in this deck. We also might get some things that change up the format in terms of what is good in Legacy, because there's some really powerful hate cards that are really easy for people to play, like that Bauble, for example, which can just shut down a lot of blue decks and combo decks too. So yeah, we done some Breakout. We did some Caustic Bronco. We drew a bunch of cards with this. It didn't quite do as much as we wanted. I think the problem with Caustic Bronco is that it has to attack for you to get the value. And sometimes in Legacy, especially in this creature-heavy version of Legacy we're in at the moment, it's a little bit awkward to keep attacking with it. So you need more removal to support this, to play like a more Jundy type strategy. But maybe we can play good old-fashioned Jund with Caustic Bronco. You know, just playing a bunch of good spells and allowing the Caustic Bronco to just keep hitting and gain the card advantage while we remove stuff and discard our opponent's hand. Maybe I'll try that at some point. If you've got a list, by all means, shoot it my way. But I think that's us done for today. So I hope you enjoyed this one. Please remember to like and subscribe. It does help the channel out, even though I bang on about it every video. It is a good metric that helps push me in algorithms and all sorts. All right. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye. If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget turbo depths, as well as 3 tiers of support. A low-cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel, a mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed turbo depths guide that is updated every month, as well as regular articles, and lastly, the higher tier gives you all of the above, as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.